Has the Scottish Parliament just banned abortion by mistake? Well, let's have a look. How might they have done that? Well, they recently passed the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child into Scots law. So what the convention says, the Scottish law now says. And they voted this through 114-0. So every MSP from every party who could bother to log on to vote in this voted for it. So let's see what it says. This convention has now been made part of Scots law. Well, Article 6 says this. State parties recognise that every child has the inherent right to life. Oh, sounds good to me. State parties shall ensure to the maximum extent possible the survival and development of the child. Absolutely. Now, obviously, the question here is, what's the definition of child? Do they mean from birth, or do they include before birth? Well, let's read the document. Let's read the Preamble to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. It says this. The child, by reason of his physical and mental immaturity, needs special safeguards and care. Absolutely. Including appropriate legal protection. Absolutely. Before as well as after birth. Let's just read those crucial words again. Before as well as after birth. That's what it says in the document of the United Nations Convention of the Right of the Child. Now, when the United Kingdom signed up to the UNCRC years ago, they realised that this looks like it's applying to unborn children. So the United Kingdom, completely wrongly, by the way, but at least they were clear, they made a declaration and said, okay, we'll sign up to this convention, but we'll make it clear we think it's only applicable following a live birth, or that's the way we're going to apply it in the UK. And lots of other nations as well, when they signed up to the UNCRC, they made it clear that that's what they were doing. Now, just a bit of clarification here. Almost every country in the world, apart from the United States, I think maybe Yemen, have signed up to the UNCRC. That means that you say you're going to abide by it, and the United Nations comes and inspects you every now and again, and gives you a report on how you're doing in keeping the convention. But Scotland's the first nation, as far as I'm aware, that's gone further than that, and actually made the convention part of the law. Okay, so Scotland made a declaration saying, just to clarify, we are not including unborn children in our interpretation of this convention. Well, no, they haven't. They haven't. Have they forgotten? I don't know. Now, what people can say, they could say, well, this thing about it applying before and after birth, it's not actually in the articles of the convention. It's in the preamble. The preamble isn't actually part of the law. Oh, which is true. Which is absolutely true. But let's look at the law that's been passed in Scotland, because it's got a section about how to interpret the UNCRC articles. And it says this. A court or tribunal which is determining a question in connection with the UNCRC requirements, which has arisen in proceedings before it, may take into account the things mentioned in subsection 2. Okay, so here are the things we use to interpret the rights. Right, A. Provisions of Part 1 of the Convention. That's not relevant. It's just basically the articles of the Convention. The preamble to the Convention. So you use the preamble to interpret the rights. The preamble says they apply before and after birth, which is why I say, has the Scottish Parliament banned abortion by mistake here? Well, let's carry on. What else do you use to interpret the Convention? The general comments. That's the United Nations publishes statements every now and again. I can't find anything there about abortions. Recommendations following United Nations Days of General Discussion. I've looked through them. I can't see anything about abortion. Other international law and comparative law. It's certainly not against international law to have a ban on abortion. So far so good. But then we get to the last one. Concluding observations. And this is where it all goes wrong. Now, what are concluding observations? As I say, the UN goes and inspects nations to see how well they're adhering to the UNCRC. And after the inspection, they give a report on them. Now, if you look at the reports, the things they report on are absolutely nothing to do with the text of the rights of the UNCRC document. They just make it up as they go along. So let's see what they said. The last time they came to the UK, for example, they said that in Northern Ireland, abortion should be decriminalised in all circumstances. In other words, the UK is failing to uphold children's rights before and after birth because abortion has not been decriminalised in Northern Ireland. In other words, you have to allow the killing of unborn children in order to promote the rights of children before and after birth. That's their logic. So the United Nations also went to the Vatican City, home of the Catholic Church, to inspect their children's rights record. And they said this is a quotation from their report to the Vatican City. The committee urges the Holy See to review its position on abortion. How about that then? The UN goes along to the Vatican and says, you need to change your position on abortion. So the United Nations interprets the UNCRC as meaning you have to allow abortion in your country. So it's not just they've neutralised the clear meaning of the text, they actually interpret it to mean the exact opposite. So the UNCRC says that you have to ensure to the maximum extent possible the survival and development of the child before as well as after birth. And the United Nations says what that means is that states must facilitate the killing of unborn children. Now, obviously, their logic is beyond parody, but that's not really the issue, is it? The issue is their morality, which is gravely wrong, and the United Nations is imposing this warped moral vision on the world, and Scotland welcomes it with open arms. In fact, the Scottish Government is never happier than when it's doing as it's told by the United Nations. So that's the state of play. Have they banned abortion by mistake? No, because the United Nations just makes it up as it goes along and is ideologically driven and is definitely, strongly, aggressively even, pro-abortion. Well, I'll finish just with a quick election guide on this issue. If you're also pro-abortion and you want to see the killing of unborn children to continue in Scotland, vote for any other party. If you wanted to stop, vote for a pro-life party, the pro-life party, which is the Scottish Family Party. It really is that simple. Okay, thanks for watching.